Hello, MGTOW. Hello, men. This is Howard Dare. Thanks for stopping by. So, I want to talk about how women gain sympathy from men. But first, let me say thank you to everybody who's been stopping by, liking, sharing, commenting, subscribing, even donating. I really appreciate it. Now, let's talk about how women gain sympathy from men. Because here's the thing. You need to understand that men are biologically wired to feel sympathy and to feel sorry for women. It's built right in. And oddly, unsurprisingly, the more attractive the woman is to the man, the more inclined he is to lend a sympathetic ear, to want to step up and protect. And, it's not a direct correlation, of course not, but understand that that instinct is there. So it would be quite a thing if society and culture and women were to play upon this basic instinct of man without his awareness of it. That would be wrong. That would be, like tricking someone. So keep that in mind. Now, naturally, from an evolutionary point of view, the women are valuable to the tribe. They can reproduce. Men value that. Yeah, I'll just put it that way. And so you can understand how the group would place more relative value on the security of the women. Even within herd animals, the women and the children are in the center of the herd. Then the breeding males are around them, and then the non-breeding males are on the outskirts of the herd. When there's a threat, naturally, the herd, circles around the women and the children. And this instinct is clearly present in the higher mammals as well, in man. Now, sympathy is a very valuable tool in negotiations. It's very similar to goodwill. So if you, as a man, have sympathy for someone, you're more likely to find a creative solution to the problem, to consider their point of view, and to try to find a way to satisfy their point of view. And men are naturally inclined, to want to please women, right? This is part of the instinct. Certainly there's very little physically compelling the male to please the female, like physical threat, but there is this large emotional content to the whole situation. And it's valuable, within the interaction. Now, what we're talking about largely is playing the victim and using sympathy as a manipulative tool. In other words, the tribe feels sorry for the women and protects the women. If the women come to the tribe with problems, the tribe is highly motivated to solve the woman's problems. If the woman can encourage sympathy, the tribe is even more inclined to solve the woman's problems. But what if she's lying? What if she's overstating? What if she's gaining false sympathy? What if she's playing the victim? What if, by feeling sympathy for the woman in all instances, the tribe is enabling the worst aspects of female nature? In other words, by giving welfare to single mothers, unrestrained, unqualified, aren't you encouraging them to be single mothers? So understand this dynamic, with the tribe and between individuals. Understand how important it is that someone gain your sympathy and what they can do with it once they have it. And understand that they could be playing the victim. And in most instances, they are. Especially all of these ideas from the left, which claim you have to sacrifice for the group or for the future. It's all an attempt at gaining sympathy in order to manipulate you out of your individual freedom. And it takes a long time to come to understand this in life. You have to be betrayed by the system enough times. You have to gain enough experience with the system. I know that's a harsh thing to say. And then those ideals with which the left is indoctrinated with, they burn away. Because of course, the family can't protect you all the time. And of course, they're not going to always be there. And of course, she's not your soulmate forever. So these illusions, they burn away. These socialist, leftist group ideals, they fade away. In the end, you are an individual and you have to take care of yourself. And if you're not strong enough to do so, then you better get sympathy. And if you're a man, there's really no sympathy for you, truly. And if you think there is, that just creates a pathetic man. So guard against that. Now, what does it mean when a whole group of people gain the sympathy of the entire nation? And what does it mean when the media and the communication network of a culture have huge vested interests in gaining and currying sympathy towards one group? This is identity politics. Do you wonder why it comes down on the sides that it comes down on? Because it's the same dynamic. This larger group that you as an individual are supposed to sacrifice for and feel sympathy for and respect to and conform to, versus the individual who, if they're doing nothing wrong, should have freedom, you would think. But not if they need to be taking care of other people. Do you see? Not if those other people need sympathy, and now they're playing the victim. And now it's on a societal scale. Now, in some instances, the sympathy, it's justice. There's a problem. There's an injustice, and it needs to have our attention. So the cries for sympathy are a request for attention to some injustice that we should pay attention to and deal with, or, to some problem. But other times, it's to divert attention away from this behavior, this unproductive behavior. In other words, the woman's not a single mother because of bad fortune, and she's not moving towards getting on her feet. She's a single mother by choice because it's profitable. And the request for sympathy for single mothers is an attempt to divert attention away from the fact that many of the women are abusing this request for sympathy of the system on a, societal scale, right? Because it's one thing if you feel sorry for an individual person, woman, and she's lying. I'm sure that's never happened to you. It's another thing when an entire technologically advanced industrial society is buying into it and the mainstream media is playing it. And, this is backed by their ideological stance, which is, their worldview. And to question that is to ask for a fight, is to put yourself morally 180 degrees opposed to everything that they would consider civilized. And of course they're wrong. Of course they're misguided. Of course they're mistaken. That's why they react the way they do. That's why they're as defensive as they are. And that's why, rather than being able to adjust their views, it'll always degrade into this conflict between good and evil as they see it. And of course, good is the side where you have to sacrifice for their group. Right. Now, eventually, they will get thrown out of their group, or they'll wise up. It's possible, like as a woman, that they will never be thrown out of the group. It's possible as a conforming male that they will never be thrown out of the group. They will always be a champion of the assumed. They just adopt the values of the people around them, and then they become this fanatic defender of the status quo and the dogma. That's all it is. These are not views that they've questioned and come to. Anyway, sympathy is the hook that they use to manipulate the independent, the free. Now, another reason that the women gain sympathy, solicit the sympathy, is to gain assistance in abusing someone else, a kind of proxy abuse, where they claim that they've been done wrong. And what a great injustice this is because, there's this instinct to protect the women. And now they use this sympathy, this false sympathy, to then heap institutional abuse and group abuse onto someone else. False accusations. And so the abuser plays the victim in order to justify to themselves, without causing this cognitive dissonance, their treatment towards others, without believing themselves to be just this terrible person. In other words, the women claiming that women have been oppressed for thousands of years and comparing men, to oppressors, like little boy in a Batman costume, represents the patriarchy. They need to believe that in order to justify their hatred and their manipulation. Otherwise, they would think poorly of themselves. They don't want to do that. It's very important, that they don't do that. So it also serves as a justification to the outside world as well. This is part of the reason why we in MGTOW, we talk about false accusers being punished. There should be a punishment associated with falsely accusing somebody of something. And the punishment should be consistent with the crime of which they are accusing the other person. So, but women use this proxy abuse, proxy violence, institutional aggression against men with impunity. And they justify it by saying, I was abused. He was looking at me the wrong way. There's a whole host of preemptive moral attacks. And these are instinctual too, right? Like insects do this stuff. They do. They really do. Although they don't really follow up on the motives. They don't make YouTube videos, okay? So the person manipulating is playing the victim role, the poor me, portraying themselves as a victim in order to gain, pity and sympathy, to evoke compassion. Now, if you think about it, it's really sinister because caring people, conscientious people, it really bothers them to see other people suffering. They actually have empathy. So what, we're talking about here in many instances is playing upon that instinct of empathy from a person who doesn't have empathy, right? This is one of the most difficult parts of the circumstance that we find ourselves in, is that it really is people of virtue being held hostage by people without virtue because of the fact that they have virtue. So you don't want to see anybody suffer and go hungry. Another person doesn't want to work very hard. So they tell you that, they've done all they can, but they're still going hungry. So you feel sorry for them, so you want to compromise. You want to find a solution so that they don't have to go hungry. But the reason why they're going hungry is because they're not willing to work hard. So it's the manipulation of the virtuous by the unvirtuous. And it is also very possible that the person looking for sympathy, they don't allow themselves to be aware of their shortcomings. The play for sympathy is a justification for their behavior or for their, lack of hard work. So talking about people who are creating a lot of drama around themselves in order to gain the sympathy, gain the advantage, to hide from themselves and from others their intentions. Otherwise, people would not help them. And in some instances, because there is some real injustice going on there. Okay, now there's a lot of other ways that people use sympathy and in a lot of different areas of life. But I'm going to save that for another video. So let me know what you think about this in the comments section. And please like, share, comment, subscribe, donate. And join me again, Howard Dare, as I plan to have more content for you. Thank you, MGTOW.